So don't, as I said, keep hope alive and move forward with your journey. Thank you.
I can't resist concluding with one or two Macalester questions. What Macalester experience or courses or activities set you on the path toward becoming Secretary General of the United Nations?
The ping pong tournaments. No, in all honesty, a combination of factors, both from the professors, from my debating experience with Roger Mosvik and others, my experience with my fellow students on the athletic field. It was a complete learning experience, and I think you learn from books, from the professors. You learn on the athletic field. You learn to accept discipline. You learn the rules. You learn to play by rules. So there is a learning opportunity in every situation, and I keep learning. I recall it wasn't long ago, my wife and I were in Germany. We were in Berlin. They had just moved the headquarters, the capital. They had just moved the capital from Bonn to Berlin. And we had a habit of going for early morning walks. So about 7 o'clock, 6:45, we decided to go for a walk, and we had a group of German security with us who took us around. After an hour of walk, I told the team leader we want to go back to the hotel. He said, Yahol. So we turned around, and after 10 minutes, I realized we were circling. So I looked at him, I said, we are lost, aren't we? He said, yes. He said, yes. And he said, I come from Bonn. I'm new in Berlin. I don't know Berlin. So I told my wife, another lesson we've learned today, don't ever assume the guide knows where he or she is going. You have to keep your eyes open. So I must say, the whole culture, the whole atmosphere, and the family atmosphere here at Macalester really did help me a lot. And I think the international outlook was extremely important. And I'm really happy that that tradition has been maintained throughout the decades.
Final question. I know you have many plans for your future after you step down as Secretary General, including, as you told me, work in Africa. Might those plans include at some point coming back and teaching in our Institute for Global Citizenship?
I think that will depend very much on Dean Samata if he will have me.
Mr. Secretary General, thank you so much for being with us.
Let me, first of all, say good morning or good afternoon to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be back here at Macalester. Well, let me say that the United States gets blamed for lots of things, but not on this one. On the Security Council reform, the problem is much broader in the sense that the proposals I put forward suggested two approaches. One would allow for creation of 6 additional permanent seats without a veto. The other formula would allow for the creation of non-permanent seats. So in other words, you have 3 categories of membership: the permanent seats with veto, the semi-permanent who were to serve for 4 years, and the 2-year seats. The membership could not agree whether to go the permanent seat route or the semi-permanent seat route, and the discussions are still going on. I hope they will be able to find a way forward, because as I said, the Council really does not reflect the geopolitical realities of today. There are some important players and regions which are not adequately represented. And for the Council to be more representative and to be seen as more democratic, the composition will have to evolve. Well, the question came up this morning, and I said I'm very much in the hands of the President and the Dean of the Global Center. Obviously, I have plans to do other things, and of course, I'm sure lecturing or advising and talking to others will continue to be part of my life. And I like dealing with young people who, as I said this morning, are the leaders of the future and the leaders of the 21st century. And so the more we can give them or deal with them, the better we can. And so it's not excluded that you may see me back here one of these days. As part of the reform process, the management reform is very much part of it. And let's not forget that when I took over in 1997, I started with reforms and indicated that reform was a process and not an event. And the search for excellence is a constant effort, and it never stops. So we are trying to make the organization more efficient and more effective, and I have a package of proposals before the member states on these issues of reform and accountability and oversight, which the member states are currently engaged on in New York, looking at it, and I hope they will come together on the reform. There are divisions amongst the member states on some of the proposals, but I would very much hope that they would find a way forward. I would also want to add that the UN has received some very unfair and unjustifiable criticism, organized political campaign against the organization, particularly surrounding the oil for food, where instances of mismanagement were exaggerated to paint the organization as a den of thieves, which is entirely wrong. And in fact, those of you who have had the chance to look at the Volcker report and studied it in its entirety will discover that if there was a problem, it was a problem with the capitals. The 2,200 companies that made deals with Saddam to be able to exploit the program. The Security Council decision under Chapter 7 is a mandatory decision, and each government has to implement those decisions, and the government should have controlled their companies to make sure they were not making deals with Saddam Hussein and paying kickbacks to him to get contracts. And you've seen some of the investigations going on in Australia and others, and quite honestly, that is where the problem was. On the UN side, it was only one staff member that supposedly may have made $150,000 out of a $64 billion program. And yet, when you read some of the reports, including the lady you quoted, all the problem is with the UN. Suddenly, we are all shocked that Saddam Hussein, who fooled the entire Western intelligence, could cheat. Let's assume we pack up the UN, close its doors. What do you have then? Quite honestly, most people would tell you if the UN did not exist today, we would have had to create it. The UN does much more than, I know we tend to focus only on conflict. When we think of threats, we think of violent conflict between states or within states. Recently, I put together a high-level panel of eminent men and women, including Brent Scowcroft and Gro Brundtland, who was former Prime Minister of Norway and head of World Health Organization, Primakov, the former Russian Prime Minister, a whole really outstanding group of people. And I asked them to look at threats, challenges, and change for the 21st century. And they came up with a much broader definition of threats, which the member states have embraced, that in today's world, depending upon where you sit, your sense of threat or danger is quite